Oh, what's going on, everybody? How we doing? It's the first time I've ever done one of these when it's dark outside. It's a different energy. You know what I mean? And it's not the winter. Happy Remembrance Day, everybody. Or if you are in the U.S. Veterans Day, and I'm being an asshole because I'm not wearing a poppy. So my apologies about that. But happy Remembrance Day, everybody. What is it? 5 p.m. PST. Monday, November 11th. But I'm doing this a lot later today. I'd like to do these lives later on holidays because today is a holiday here in Canada. Just so I can kind of enjoy the day a little bit more rather than doing it noon Pacific. So thanks everyone for bearing with me for doing this later. So if you guys are watching this, where are you guys tuning in from? Look at that fucking orb. Holy shit. Look at the guys. There's Tinkerbell in the background. There's literally like Julia Roberts from the movie Hook is floating around up here. Just keep an eye out for her. Oh man, look at that. I got like a little orbs just kind of floating all over the place. Look at that. I must have a halo on my head. Well done, Jamie. Um, how you guys doing? How's everybody holding up here? Monday, November 11th. If you guys are watching, where are you guys tuning in from? Where are you guys tuning in from in this great, big, beautiful world? If you are watching this live, don't be shy and post your name and where you're tuning in from in the chat section. Would love to get acquainted with who is here watching live. If you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to include them in the chat. Any questions about anything, even just doesn't even have to do with the topic that I'm going to be talking about today, which we're going to be talking about ancient souls. We're going to be talking about ancient souls. I think is that what this live is about? I think that's what this live is about. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the path or the pathway of the ancient soul. And so if you guys are watching this, there's probably a chance that you are in fact an ancient soul. I'm not just talking about an old soul. I'm talking about an ancient soul. When I was thinking about this, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if you could it was one of those sci-fi type movies where you could see how old someone's soul is. You know what I mean? Like, you know how when you fucking cut down a tree, you can see the rings that show how old the tree is, like some sort of little fucking dog tag inside the ear that shows, there's a bunch of lines and it's like, oh, like this person's an ancient soul, this person's an old soul, this person's a new soul. You know what I mean? The people that run the fucking sci-fi world, the spaceship, like the leaders of the spaceship are the ones who have the most amount of rings in the dog tag ear that God or the divine being sort of puts in people. And those with really, really ancient souls are the leaders or like the head of chief council in this sci-fi world. They are the shamans, they are the protectors, they are the leaders. And it kind of has like a pyramid scheme. There we go. We got Tinkerbell. We kind of have that pyramid scheme. Holy shit. It's crazy. And we kind of have that pyramid scheme where it's the fucking ancient souls sit a little bit higher, and then you have the old souls. Then you have what would come after the old souls? I guess young souls. But anyways, you have this sort of pyramid scheme. I think that would be a really, really cool world. Imagine that if the old souls, the ancient souls were running the world. I think that'd be fucking crazy. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the path of being an ancient soul and just sort of what that looks like. And I remember I did a reading years ago, and the psychic was like, "Yeah, Jamie, like your soul has been here since the beginning of Earth's creation." I was like, "I fucking knew it! I knew it! I called that! I called that!" And but yes, I have a very, very ancient soul, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about what that sort of path is, you guys. Because I always remember when I was a kid, I was, always like that dreamer. I was always feeling so much. I could just feel sort of the sorrow of life at such a potent, sort of acute way. And yes, I'm also an artist, and a highly sensitive person and a big feeler and all those things. But I knew it was also just because of my soul, that I had this very expansive soul. And I don't know how you guys feel, but kind of like this idea, like your soul is so expansive that like you don't even know if you can fit this soul into this lifetime. You don't know if you can fit this soul into everything that you do. It feels so expansive and so big. And it kind of leads to this idea of like you don't know if you're ever going to be able to fully actualize the dreams of the soul, the expansiveness of the soul. And so I always felt that ever since I was young. So I always knew I was an old soul. But then since I've come into this path, I realized, oh shit, I'm not just an old soul. I'm an ancient soul, baby. It's like when you meet someone, you're like, yeah, you're not an ancient soul. You're just an old soul. Yeah. But when you're like an ancient soul, you guys, it means that you have to go through a certain path. You have to go through a certain path if you are meant to come into total embodiment of your soul in this lifetime, right? So if you're an ancient soul and you're meant to come awake, it means you're going to have a pretty gnarly path in order to embody and in order to ground that soul in the body. When you're an ancient soul, what probably doesn't happen, you probably don't meet someone, get married at 25, start a business, crush it off the first hop. Everything's nothing but just calm seas, open water, green lights. That usually doesn't happen when you have an ancient soul. Also, an interesting practice, you guys, is when you meet someone, try to feel into how old you think their soul is. Ask yourself, do they have a young soul, kind of teenage soul, an old soul, or an ancient soul? Because what you can really do is you can really feel into someone's depth based off the age of their soul, right? And so constantly, like when you're in the presence of someone, ask yourself, like, how old does their soul feel? When I'm in their energy, how old does their soul feel? And usually what happens when you feel into the age of someone's soul, essentially like what you're feeling into is their spiritual aptitude, right? So when you think of like people who are really spiritually tapped in, they're typically people who hold ancient souls, which means they hold wisdom and guidance from centuries and centuries and centuries and lifetimes ago, right? They hold this sort of innate wisdom. And so what that means when we're going on this pathway of being an ancient soul, it means we have a certain level of karma, a certain level of karma that we're capable of holding. And karma is going to be um, chat disconnected, successfully connected. And karma can either be a positive or a negative, right? But it's just energy. It's just energy. And so if we are this ancient soul, it means that if we are meant to come awake in this lifetime, if we are meant to come awake in this lifetime, and we are at a point in our journey where we are going to come awake, that there's going to be a certain level of karma that we're going to have to move through, which just means we're going to have to learn a lot of harder lessons. And we're probably going to have to learn a lot of the same lessons repeatedly over and over. It means that the spiritual initiation that we are going to go through if we are meant to come awake is going to be proportional to the age of our soul. So if you're an ancient soul, it means you have that much spiritual power or spiritual capability. So when you think of like really gifted spiritual people, they're people who have really, really ancient souls. That's sort of the aptitude or the ability, right? And then the awakening path, coming into the embodiment on your path, on your journey, is basically the actualization of that aptitude. So when you go on your spiritual path and you begin to become awakened and you have this ancient soul, it means you're pulling from so much energy. You're pulling from so much crazy energy. It means the field is that big. It means the possibility and size of your container is that big. So when someone has a really young soul, it means that the field they're pulling from is a lot smaller, which means that, what they're going to be able, what they have the possibility to access in their space energetically is going to be so much less. If we have an ancient soul, it has to do with energetic ability and energetic access. If we have an ancient soul, it means that our body is pulling from such a bigger field, at least the possibility, right? Because when we're an ancient soul, but we don't come awake in this lifetime, those are the types of people that really, really feel it, right? People who have really ancient souls, but they don't come into the embodiment of that soul. Those are people who really, really feel life in really, really challenging ways because they have this really massive ancient soul, but they're not coming into the embodiment of it, right? Basically, just what it means, you guys, is that our soul is out of body. It means that our soul is out of body. So when we have this, because what happens in an awakening path or an awakening journey, basically what we're trying to do is embody as much of the soul and ground as much of the soul in the body as we're able to. That's what it means to step into your spiritual gifts and your spiritual power. Holy shit, you guys, there's so many fucking orbs. You guys, look above my head. This is crazy. Holy shit, look above my head. It's like a fucking solar system up there. What you guys see all that, all those orbs above my head? Keep a lookout for that shit. So when it comes to the age of our soul, it comes to the amount of energy, the size of our field, and the capacity for our soul. An awakening path is about grounding the soul in the body. You guys understand that? An awakening path is about grounding and embodying the soul. You know, you guys have probably heard terms of like soul retrieval, different things like that. That's basically what's happening when we're trying to move through karma in order to ground in the divine body. So what happens is karma is kind of like blocks in the field. Karma has all these constraints that impede the energy or the soul from entering the body. So think about karma kind of blocks and represses and restrains the field. That's why when we complete karmic contracts, there's going to be so much energy that gets activated. There's going to be so much energy that gets activated all at once because karma's now been pulled away. The karmic sort of restraints have been pulled away, and now the divine or the soul can drop in. And so as you become more awakened on your path, what you're essentially doing is more of your soul is becoming embodied. It means more of your aura and your natural radiance and frequency is able to be in your flesh. But what happens is, I kind of like to see it, it's kind of up here, right? It's kind of up here. And what I mean by that is that it's disembodied, it's out of body, that their karma has blocks and restraints. And so when we're an ancient soul, when we're someone who would consider ourselves to be an ancient soul, it means the possibility and propensity of this field is so fucking massive. It's so massive, which means that when we become embodied and go on this sort of awakening path, the field that we're going to be accessing is so much bigger. It means that when we go through an awakening journey, we're going to be working in so many different lifetimes. We're going to be working in so many different generations of energy. And we're also going to probably be accessing energy from so many different collective energetic fields in the sort of universal space. And so when you go on this path of healing and becoming awakened, when you are this person of being an ancient soul, it means that you're going to be having to work with so much more energy. And in order to unlock that energy, you're going to have to learn so many more karmic lessons. What it also does is it breeds this inherent space of wisdom. What it means is that you're going to go through a breakup. And when you go through a breakup, sure, you're going to be feeling heartbreak in that breakup, in that relationship, but you're probably also going to be accessing so much more energy in the entire collective field. When it comes to polarity work, when you're an ancient soul, you're literally going to be harmonizing collective energies at a universal level in your body. You're not just going to be dealing with your mother wound, your father wound. You're not just going to be dealing with the maternal and the paternal lineage. You're going to be dealing with everywhere in sort of the collective universal frequencies on earth that are not harmonized. And you're going to be asked to harmonize those energies in your body. It just means the amount of energy and what you're accessing is going to be so much more than just this lifetime. It means you're going to have to go through all these lessons, these really, really challenging lessons in order to embody your soul. So if you are someone, you look at your path, and it's been a really, really challenging path, right? A huge way, one of the most common ways that we learn lessons are through relationships, right? And so typically for an ancient soul, we're probably going to have to learn a lot of really challenging relational lessons. That means you might learn them within relationship, one relationship, or you might learn them through a bunch of different relationships. But one of the main ways that karma is activated and karma is created is through any type of relationship that really has a strong attachment, right? So we think family and we think romantic relationship, right? That's where attachment is present. And so we're probably going to have to learn so many different types of relationship lessons, sorry, and probably learn these lessons over and over again in order to awaken or in order to heal that relational pattern or contract. It means that we're going to have to work with ancient energy in the body when it comes to familial family contracts. It just means the amount of energy that our body is going to be working in and accessing and is going to be such a potent, profound level of energy, right? So you think of someone who's a younger soul, right? You think of someone who's a young soul. That person could be in the spiritual industry, but their soul feels young. You guys know what it's like when you just when someone's soul feels young, it means that there's probably not going to be as much depth to them. When you think of a young soul, you in a very surface sort of way, you think about how much depth is there to that person. When a person is a very young soul, it means that they're probably not going to have to go through certain things in their life. Their life is probably going to be closer to the surface. It doesn't mean they won't have challenges and difficulties, but they won't have to probably go on this really, really karmic path. You know, life will be a little more close to the surface, a little simpler, a little bit easier. And when someone has a really young soul, it means that for their soul to embody on their awakening path, they just don't have to go through as much. They just don't have to go through as much. This is why some people just figure things out a lot faster. If you look at some people's path, right? They just were able to find their person really, really quickly. They were able to figure out this business really, really quickly. They were able to come into certain things in their life, and they didn't have to go through the peaks and valleys that a lot of really ancient souls go through. A lot of really, really ancient souls, there's so much depth. What it means is there's so much bigger of an energetic field that we're trying to work in. Maybe there's so many different things that we could see ourselves doing. There's just the field is so much bigger, which is both a blessing and a curse. Being an ancient soul is both a blessing and a curse. It means you're just going to feel the collective field in front of you, the energetic field in front of you, way more than the average person. And your path is going to be a hell of a path, but it's going to breed wisdom if you allow it to. It's going to breed wisdom if you allow it to. And what happens with ancient souls, as we retrieve aspects of our soul that have been disembodied and bring them into our body, it means a bunch of things. One, we're going to have more access to what I call this orgasmic frequency. So when you think of like this orgasmic frequency, what that means is that all your energy centers and your chakras in your body are aligned and they're spinning at the same time. And so you think about your sacral is in balance with your root, and your solar plexus are in balance and in harmony with your heart. So all the chakras and all the energy centers are in alignment and they're in proper balance. And what happens when you move into a space spiritually where your energy centers and you guys, so like when we think of trauma or karma, we have a certain level of trauma and karma at different energy centers in the body. For example, if we come from patterns of sexual abuse, either to us or our ancestors in the lineage, then we're going to have karma or trauma. Obviously, makes sense. Blocks with the sacral chakra, right? And if, for example, if we have a really, really strong mother wound or father wound, then that's probably going to show up more in heart chakra, right? Capacity to what would have been receive mom, receive dad in the heart. And so as we move into embodiment or we embody the soul, I want think embodiment really means embodying the frequency and energy of the soul. It means trying to develop and increase your capacity to hold more of your natural source essence, your natural soul essence. And so as that comes into the body, we're going to have to work with different karma and trauma in different energy centers of the body, in different chakras. We're going to have to go through that process, and we're going to have to go through that process at a deeper level. When you're an ancient soul, it just means the field that you're going to be healing in is going to be that much bigger, right? Someone who has a younger soul begins to become embodied. They're probably not going to be working with thousands and thousands of year-old energy. It probably means they're not going to be downloading divine feminine, divine masculine codes. That's not their soul's contract, which is fine. But when you're an ancient soul and you begin to become embodied and you begin to actually resurrect and heal that karma, the amount of energy in your body is going to be fucking insane. The amount of energy in your space is going to be so much more than the average person. And the amount of healing that you're going to be doing, the field is going to be so big. That's why there's so much energy, because the field you're accessing is so big. You're not just healing your shit, you're healing all your ancestor stuff. And when it comes to like really accessing ancestral energy, so much of that has to do with how old our soul is, right? If we have a young soul, we're probably not going to be working in the ancestral field as much. That's just probably not going to be the contract that comes into our space. But if we're an ancient soul and we begin to heal, we are probably going to be the lineage disruptor, because what's going to happen is our field around us is going to be accessing. It's going to be accessing so much energy. And all this up here, guys, I refer to, this is the quantum field, the quantum realm. The quantum realm is what I just consider everything outside of this lifetime, everything that would be considered past life or in the ancestral field. That's what I consider the quantum realm. And so all this energy up here, right? All this energy up here, this is the field up here. And this energy wants to drop down into the body. But when there's a lot of karma, we're blocked here. We're blocked. And really what that means is that we're blocked from remembering our innate divine being. We're blocked from remembering our innate divine capacity. So karma blocks here, right? And so if you have an ancient soul, you're going to be working in so much energy up here. You're going to be working in so much energy up here. And you're not only going to be dealing with your karma, but you're going to be dealing with the karma of your ancestors. And so, again, it kind of is like, you know, being Spider-Man and getting bit by a spider, and you're like, fuck, I don't want to be Spider-Man. Well, it's like, fuck, you got bit by a spider. Now you're going hair all over your body, and you had 2 legs, and now you have 8 legs, and you're like, fuck, I don't have a choice. That's kind of what we're talking about here. When you make the choice to come awake in this lifetime, and you have an ancient soul, your soul has been here since the beginning of time. It's the same thing as getting bit by a fucking spider. All of a sudden, the hair grows all over your body, 8 legs, you got this fucking halo. You're meant to download and come into archetypal divine feminine, divine masculine codes. And so you don't have a choice in this, right? And so this is where this inherent responsibility becomes with being an ancient soul. The inherent responsibility with being an ancient soul is that when you make the choice that you're fully going to become expressed, you're not going to be repressed, you're going to fully be expressed in this lifetime. And you have made that choice, whether consciously or unconsciously. God's like, oh, okay. You ready? Are you ready to dance, daddy? Are you ready to dance, daddy? That's what God, basically what happens up there in sort of the divine quantum sort of realm, when an old soul begins to become awake, or an ancient soul, not just an old soul, but an ancient soul, there's like a siren that goes off. You know, a bunch of fucking angels are floating around, you know, eating fruit snacks, you know, whatever, brushing, cleaning their wings, whatever the fuck they do. And then all of a sudden, one of the angels is like, oh shit, you can feel that energy down from earth, right? Jamie is beginning to become awake. He's doing all this somatic work on himself. He's getting it. He's realizing it. Then all of a sudden the angels, they stop brushing their wings and they're like, okay, shit, we gotta let fucking God know, you know? And God's like, you know, getting a pedicure or whatever, right? Just kind of chilling out. And they sound this alarm up there in sort of the divine quantum field. And God's like, okay, You want to come awake, Jamie? Okay. Now we're going to have to bring you all these karmic obstacles that you're going to have to learn to move through like it's the hardest fucking video game on earth. You want to come awake? Are you sure? And so basically, you got God and the angels up there that now start to test us. God and the angels up there, they start to test us. Oh, here, I'm gonna give you this person. I'm like, oh my God, is that the love of my life? Is that a sacred union? And God's like, hold my beer. And you realize, oh shit, this is really a karmic relationship. And so all these tests begin happening, right? You know what happens when a younger soul starts to come awake? God doesn't even feel it. God's up there and he's like, it's like a little whiff of a fart. Like that's all it is. But when you're an ancient soul, it's like a tidal wave. Like God's crown gets blasted. He's like, oh, wow, this soul is ancient. Oh my God, I can feel it. But a younger soul, it's just like a little whiff of energy. It's like poof, poof. Like, and so God, he doesn't have any interest. He's like, okay, this person wants to become awake. Perfect. Off they go. But when you're an ancient soul, God and the angels get word when you're beginning to become awake, and they lay out this path. This is where sort of divine intervention comes, illness, injury, karmic relationships, having to deal with family and in karma in the family system, whatever it might be on your path, you're going to have this path with more obstacles and more challenging situations and events that you might have to learn repeatedly because the karma is that heavy. The karma is that thick. When you're an ancient soul, the karmic field is so fucking heavy. It means you're probably going to have much more capacity to work with land. People do different things like grid work and ley lines. It means that your capacity to work with land is going to be at a more potent level because of how ancient your soul is, because how much energetic access you have in your field. And so you're going to be brought down this path of having to deal with really, really heavy karma. When we think of karma, I like to think of like weight. There's like weight, right? If we're a younger soul, the amount of karma in our field is going to be pretty light. It's going to be pretty light. But when we're an ancient soul, it's like we're having to like carry these massive like logs and fucking trees uphill. The amount of karma that we're dealing with is really, really thick. It's really, really heavy, right? And so it means that we have to go through this journey. And what that means is that our initiation or the divine intervention that we go through is going to be representative of the amount of weight of karma that God and spirit is like, okay, Jamie's coming awake. He's an ancient soul. He's been here since the beginning of time. All right, angels. And they kind of have this little fucking, he's got Charlie's Angels up there, whatever. And they got this little blueprint. Let's lay out Jamie's awakening path. Let's, lay down the foundation of what we're going to put Jamie through. Remember, he's an ancient soul. And God has fun with the ancient souls. God has fun with the ancient souls because he's battle testing you. He's battle testing you because the ancient souls become the leaders of humanity. They become the leaders at the cutting edge of collective consciousness. Right now, we're in a huge sort of pivot point where we're moving into one of like the most spiritual and psychic revolutions of our time, which means that there's a lot of ancient souls who are being called into awakening right now. If you think about that sci-fi world in the spaceship, a lot of us with those ancient dog tags in our ears are being called to awakening now. I see a sacred union, a true sacred union, as two ancient souls that find one another, two ancient souls that come together on a trajectory on this path, and they find each other at this sort of inflection point in sort of their collective trajectories, where they're both coming into their codes at sort of the same time or similar rates in their soul's evolution here on Earth. But so many ancient souls are being called to awakening right now. And so the proportional challenge that we go through in our spiritual initiation, right? Think of spiritual initiation, think of Kundalini awakenings, having to go through really challenging situations in the body, health-wise, having to go through situations learning these karmic lessons relationally, we're going to have to go through a proportional amount of challenge that is representative of the age of our soul. So it means the weight of the initiation, the density of the initiation, the amount of energy that we're going to work in through our initiation is going to be proportional to how long our soul has been here. How many lifetimes has our soul already been in, right? How many incarnations has our soul experienced, right? Because you think of soul is so energetic, right? It's frequency, it's it's vibration, right? That's when I think of the soul. And so what really happens when that soul becomes embodied, it's like your frequency. You can really feel your frequency. People can really, really feel you energetically. And what happens when an ancient soul really becomes embodied, you have a very specific frequency. You have a very sort of specific energetic frequency that's very specific to you. And so when you're sort of in the frequency of that soul, you're able to now move into your dharma. You're able to now move into God mission. And it means that you're probably going to have a really, really big mission, right? When you have an ancient soul, it probably means you're going to have some sort of specifically anointed God mission. Because you're able to access all this energy, it means that the potential ripple of transformation that you can create, or the potential impact that you can cultivate in your space, is going to be that big. It's going to be that tectonic. What it means is that, you know, when you're working with people, you can probably help people access ancient energy really quickly. You can probably help people access really profound things really, really quickly just through your presence, right? When you're in the presence of an ancient soul, their energy can feel healing. Their energy can feel transformative just being in their space. Basically, guys, like being an ancient soul is like it's being a superhero, and but it's being having the capacity to be a superhero. And the question is, are you going to move into that? And it's going to determine about if you are ready to become awakened in this lifetime. At this particular moment in time, are you ready to come awake? And you're going to have to go through this path of a certain amount of karma that you're going to have to move through, which would be more than the average person. You're going to have to go through more karma and heavier duty karma than the average person. So when you look around at some people, it's like, why did how did that happen so easily for them? Or how, how did that come to be? They probably don't have a super old soul. I hate to say it, you guys. If things just come really easily for people, they probably don't have an old soul. If, for example, if people don't really have this crazy initiation, or don't really have any sort of severe initiation they have to go through, and they're on a healing awakening path, they're probably a really young soul. Doesn't mean they're a bad person, but it probably means their soul is not as old. It's not as ancient. So the field, but what it does mean is the amount of power and potency they can access through their healing journey won't be as potent or as profound as you if you have an ancient soul. Holy shit, there's so much orbs all over the place. But so when you have this ancient soul and you become awake and you go down the healing path, it means you're going to have a gnarlier path. It means you're going to have a gnarlier initiation. Like when I went through my initiation, um, I realized, oh shit, like this is so acute. But I realized that I was meant to go through such an acute initiation and in the way that I did for my specific purpose. And I understand. I really understand really specifically why my initiation happened in the way that it did. For example, for me, with my initiation, I wasn't someone who was in spiritual communities. I wasn't fucking going to do ayahuasca, anything. I was like a dude. All I did was I started to do a lot of embodiment and somatic work, which is really how you activate the age of your soul. If you're an old soul and you want to what do I do to begin to heal karma? You got to do embodiment work. You got to work with your nervous system. You got to work with your core trauma. And so any type of embodiment or somatic work, working in the body, is how you're going to begin to access the field, right? So always what happens, you guys, when we talk about age of soul, it's energy up here, right? But when our soul isn't embodied, it means there's blocks. It means there's karmic blocks that are impeding the soul from becoming embodied. That's what karma means, soul impeded. Divine means soul is able to flow seamlessly. Because what you're going to experience is when your chakras and your energy centers in your body are all perfectly aligned, and you have dispelled the karma and trauma from the various energy centers of the body, and they're beginning to harmonize with one another, which is balance, which is homeostasis, which is integration, which is ultimately just you're in sort of the divine state. You're going to feel the presence of your soul. You're going to feel this amount of energy. You're going to feel the frequency of your soul. I always do this with clients when it comes to the third eye, because the third eye is the revelation of the path of the higher self. And so one way to find out the color of your soul or the color of your oracle is if you were to go right to your third eye and ask someone what color they want to place there. What color do they want to place there? But I'm going to say this with a caveat. When someone's working through a lot of trauma, that color could change, right? For example, I had a client recently and we did that and they were like yellow. They said yellow, right? Yellow was the color that came in the third eye. And instinctively, I knew that wasn't the color of her soul or the color of her aura, but it was the color of this generational trauma that she was moving through. So, and oftentimes when people a lot of times red, I don't know why, but when someone says the color red is the color of their oracle or the color of their soul, there's some type of trauma or pain their body's trying to digest. And so sometimes those colors will block or impede the color of our soul. But when we're not in that space, for example, me, it's turquoise. The color of my soul is turquoise, right? I have turquoise all over here, but turquoise is the color of my soul. So when I'm in the total frequency of my soul, when I'm in the total embodiment of my soul, I feel turquoise. I feel energetically like turquoise. And so even just an effective way to experience the embodiment of your soul is you place that color at your third eye, which is the revelation of the path of the higher self. And then you imagine that color is expanding down into your eyes, your face, all around you. And then you kind of spread that color out, right? So for me, it's turquoise, and I can spread that color around. And when you're coming into the embodiment of your soul, your aura is going to be able to take up a lot of space. And when we think about taking up a lot of space, what it really means is the color of your soul is free to expand all around you. It's free to expand all around you. What it really is going to feel like in the presence of someone like this, they're going to feel really distinct. Oh, that person feels really distinct, who they are. You can really sense who they are. They're really, really themselves, and they have a really big energy. They have a really, really big energy, a really powerful energy. That basically means that color has been able to expand and sort of move all around them. And so this field up here, right? This is what we're working with when we're trying to work with the embodiment of soul or an ancient soul. Means that when we heal, so if you're an ancient soul and you begin to heal, I want you just to imagine it's as if God has this bucket of energy up here that is now going to begin to be pressed down through the crown once you go on the healing and awakening path. It means the amount of energy you're going to be working with is so much. It's going to be bigger, it's going to be older, it's going to be gnarlier, and it's going to take longer. So when you're an ancient soul, but it means the amount of power that you're going to be able to access. It means the collective ripple that you're going to move into. When you actually do the healing work and you embody, you literally become one of God's messengers. Ancient souls are God's messengers. Really what's happening right now in sort of the collective field is God's messengers. The ancient souls are being anointed more than ever. They're being called to a path of awakening because we're part of the messengers and part of the front line of this new sort of collective wave of sort of consciousness that's trying to move. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to remember our divinity. That's all we're trying to do. We're trying to remember our divinity. And what's happening is so many of God's messengers, the ancient souls, are being brought on these pathways of spiritual initiation. That's why with this crazy portal we've been in for the past 2 months, there's so much ancient energy, collective energy, ancestral energy, and the amount we're going to be feeling that energy is going to have to do with the age of our soul. If you think about a young soul's not going to feel the energy of this portal. If you're an ancient soul, you're probably feeling it. What that means is our crown here, the connection to God and the divine, is becoming thinner and thinner. So it means we're accessing all of this here, so much more. So when we go through this portal that we've been going through for the past 2.5 months, all this energy is being dumped down, pressed down like a French press. What that means, it's past life. That's the collective energy, right? Energy that might feel it's not yours, right? But you're accessing, because there's a lot of harmonizing with the feminine, the masculine, divine, feminine that's trying to happen in the field, right? So many different ways. And so if you're an ancient soul, you're going to have all this energy dumped down, way more than the average person, which means probably this portal the past 2.5 months, you've been dealing with way more emotional, physical, and energetic symptoms, whether it's exhaustion or whether it's just accessing a level of darkness, right? So in these portals like we've been in, they're basically kind of continuing to reveal more and more that the thread and cords between the human realm and the psychic realm, they're beginning to, like, that means we're getting closer to having a psychic spiritual experience here on earth. Meaning, so when something, guys, to think about, like when we think about, oh, I'm trying to have a spiritual experience, what that really, really means is we're trying to have an experience fully with our soul. When we're trying to have a spiritual experience, we're trying to have an experience completely and entirely with the vastness of our soul, right? So when we want to have a religious or a spiritual experience, what it really means actually is we're experiencing more of our soul. And so basically the process of becoming embodied and becoming awakened is the experience of being able to access and hold and feel more of the expansiveness of our soul in our body. So we can be sitting there and we're feeling more of our power. We're feeling more of our soul's innate capacity, right? And so this field up here, the karma is being dispelled, which is now giving us more access to our soul. It's giving us more access for me to experience myself as turquoise, right? When my crown really, really fucking opens, I feel like the color turquoise. I feel like the color turquoise. When my crown really opens, I feel energetically light. I want to make jokes. I want to be funny. The frequency of me feeling really light as a color, it feels turquoise. And so that means there's no more disruptions up here, right? That means that here to God is a straight shoot, right? The reason why when you're around people who are really pragmatic, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh my God, that's so woo-woo. Essentially what it means is from here to God is like weights and weights and tons of resistance, tons of gunk. When we talk about scraping the psychic pot, what we're essentially doing is clearing the energy above our head. That is essentially what we are doing. And then what happens when that, you'll know that karma is dispelling because here to God feels unrestricted. When you're in a total surrender in your body and you totally trust the path with God, this blasts wide open. There's no resistance. And so all of this karma comes because it's trying to put us into more of a sovereign relationship with source, where we trust it more and we can feel it more. And what it really, really means, a lot of what it means is experiencing more of the expansiveness of your soul, more of that innate instinctive color that makes you who you are. And when we're an ancient soul, there's more gunk to clear out here. There's a lot more gunk to clean out, which means that you're probably going to have a much more challenging initiation or awakening path than someone who has a younger soul, right? The person with the younger soul probably just won't be accessing as much karma. They won't be. And so the amount of karma that we're accessing is also the amount of energy that we're capable of experiencing, right? So, for example, with this, think about this portal, you guys, the past 2.5 months, we're basically in mid-November. Think about the level of darkness that's moved through you. Think about the level of heavy, dense energy that you move through. Essentially what that's doing, and it's kind of a little bit scary to think about, at least for me, because, and I'm beginning to feel glimpses of it now, but when I think about the weight of that karma, and when that karma begins to dispel, I'm like, holy fuck. That energy on the other, it's a fucking rocket. It's a fucking cannonball. Like I literally, it's like, and this, what is it, Monday night? Over the weekend, the energy that I started to feel, I was like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like it literally felt like I was fucking at NASA taking off. And I would experience it, and then a bunch of grief and darkness would come, and then it would come back, and I kind of been oscillating between it. And I was like, okay, I understand what's happening. The rocket's trying to take off, right? The rocket's trying to take off, which means zero restriction here. The rocket is trying to fucking blast to the moon. But as it does, it reveals the gunk, the residual karma collectively, ancestrally, different lifetimes that has to go. And what it's about, you guys, and this is an important thing, the amount of karma that we have to work through is going to be completely synchronistic with what our mission is. God has a specific mission for us. If we're an ancient soul, there's something that he needs us. And he's bringing us through this initiation so that we can vibrationally align with the frequency we need to be in for the mission that we are supposed to execute and initiate. It's all about, that's what manifestation is. It's frequency and habitation of a frequency to create the execution of some result from that frequency. And so the amount of karma, and really what this portal has felt like the past 2.5 months is, okay, it's really, really time for you to move into Dharma. It's really, really time for you to move into the God anointed mission. You're an ancient soul. God's up there getting a fucking pedicure. The angels are cleaning their wings. And they're like, whoop, you know, God and the angels are having a play day. Do you think God's just loving this portal that he's putting us through? He's like, he's up there getting a pedicure and just watching on all these monitors, like let's fuck shit up for a bit. But he's got an orchestration of a grand master plan. So he's watching us on all these big screens. He's fucking us up a little bit because God punches you in the dick before he jumps on your dick. We need to know that. And so, but he has a plan. And he's like, and that's why God or the universe will never give you something you can't handle. So what you're getting right now, the amount of karma that you're working through in the field right now in your body, in your space, is exactly what you have the innate capacity to hold. And as you have the innate capacity to hold this, it's revealing the gunk that is still in the way of the revelation of your dharma that is trying to come through for you. The God anointed mission. So God's up there. He's like to Jamie, he's like, Jamie, it's time for you to step onto the path. It's time for you to step onto the path, but I still have this for you. I still have this for you, which is going to illuminate certain things in your consciousness and your psyche. It's going to illuminate gunk here. God wants us here to here, and it reveals all the gunk here. Ways that we're still not in complete union with that energy and frequency. And so he's giving us exactly what we can handle in this moment. And so we have to hold that we always have the innate capacity to hold and move exactly what we're getting. We are getting this energy in our field for some divine orchestration. And it is like a boomerang effect where you kind of get buried and then the energy, it's like a volcano, right? And so there is going to be this sort of slingshot boomerang effect for a lot of these ancient souls where the energy we're going to access is literally like the entire frequency of our soul has been retrieved and recaptured, and now it's becoming totally in the fucking body. And when that happens, we can now execute on our mission. We can now go out into the world and execute Dharma, God anointed mission. And so this is all planted. This is all planted by God. This is all planted because we're supposed to be the messengers, right? And it's really happening at a bigger level, right? It used to be this form of consciousness was, maybe to the few enlightened few, but now this shit's trying to become pop. God is trying to become pop. Like, you guys get that? God is trying to become pop music. That is what's happening right now. God is trying to become pop music. He's like, fuck that. I don't want to be, niche or niche. I want to be a fucking pop star. That's what the energy of God is saying right now. That's why these portals are coming. God wants to be a fucking pop star. God wants to be a pop star. And so that's why so many more people are getting hit. These portals are coming. Zero separation between the psychic spirit realm and the human realm, so that we can be initiated into these processes of soul retrieval, so that we can download and embody our soul. And it is all revealed here. Here. And this is why at the first thing people will be experiencing is exhaustion, just tiredness. That's because it's like energy here revealed but can't move. Energy here revealed but can't move. When people aren't even experiencing this energy, it means that none of this has been activated. None of what it essentially means, if people aren't really feeling this energy, it means they haven't started working in other lifetimes. The only way we're really, really going to be feeling this portal and the energy of this portal and actually be moving through the portal is if we're ready to work with ancestral energy. So the proportional amount that we have worked with the quantum field, past life energy, ancestral energy is going to be revealed with what this portal has looked like for us the past 2.5 months. And so if someone's never accessed any ancestral energy before, they're probably not going to be experiencing really anything during this portal. They're not even going to be aware of it. But if you've worked with a lot of ancestral energy, you're going to be like going through the gauntlet the past 2.5 months, because that all has to do with the access to this. It's all about this. It's all about this. And so energy that is not from our lifetime is always up here, and it's trying to come down here, right? And so when we are this ancient soul, to kind of bring it back around to this, it means that we're just going to have to deal with more of the barriers up here, and we're probably going to access it faster and more quickly, and we're not really going to have a choice. If you're an ancient soul and you start to do a lot of work on yourself, you're going to start to work in other lifetimes really, really fucking fast. If you're an ancient soul, you start to do some embodiment, some somatic therapy, you're going to start to access ancient realms, motherfucker. And you're not going to have a choice. You're going to get bit by that spider. And all of a sudden, you're going to have 50 legs. And you'd be like, fuck, I did not sign up for this. Well, your soul did. Your soul signed up for it. And our soul is now in incarnation in our body in this life. And that's what an awakening path is. And so we're at this spiritual and psychic revolution right now. Right fucking now, where God's messengers, the ancient souls, are being anointed. They are being anointed. And the most ancient of the ancient souls are being anointed right now to be at the cutting, leading edge of this new wave of consciousness that is trying to penetrate the earth. That's what's happening with these psychic spirit realms and the complete dissipation and dissolvement. I don't even know if it's a fucking word, of the psychic spirit realm and the human realm. It's because, and so the proportional amount you've been feeling this portal the past 2.5 months, it means you're part of the revolution, baby. It means you're part of the revolution. It means that you are part of this new, you're part of the front of the front. You're at the front of the front wave. This is like when you're on the ocean, you see a beautiful fucking wave. Like, that's consciousness, and that's what's coming. And the ancient souls that are ready to come awake and have done enough to come awake are going to be at the front lines of this new wave of consciousness. The ancient souls. And this is what's happening right now. It's wild. But God wants to be a pop star. That's why more and more people are coming awake. God's like, fuck this. I don't want to be indie. I don't want to be indie. I'm a fucking pop star, baby. You know, I want to sell records. God's like, I want to sell records. That's why, like, this is literally, I think, God's gangster era. Like, this is where God becomes a pop star, becomes fucking mainstream. You know what I mean? That's why people are becoming awake. Before, he's like, I don't want to just be in a church. Stuffy in there. You know, he's like, Jamie, take me to the streets. Bring healing to the streets, babe. God's like, that's what God's in his gang era, baby. God's in his gang era. God wants to light it the fuck up. That's how I feel. All right, everyone. That's going to be it for this evening, Monday, November 11th. The path of the ancient soul, or the path of the ancient souls. If you tuned in to this live, I much appreciate your presence and your eyeballs and your attention here. Give this video a like. Send it to a friend who may need to hear this message, and give my channel a subscribe if you haven't already, because we're going to be doing more and more of these videos, and it would be much appreciated on my end. And yeah, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next in this live on Friday. Hope everyone has an amazing week. Goodbye.